Very good afternoon, and actually it's good evening. Um, Let me thank again Dr. Bhatta Radhakrishna for giving this opportunity. And this is the sixth lecture in this lockdown series. From the keeping the postgraduates in mind, all these have been prepared. So I hope and wish that you will get a benefit out of this. Again, I have to bring this in attention because this in the initially when I took the right iliac fossa and hypochondrium, I did mention this is very smallest quadrant in the abdomen. Now you look at the epigastrium. Very many times the mass is somewhere here, and you people will tell is epigastrium. So make a practice to draw these lines. Make a practice always to draw a line between the xiphisternum and the umbilicus to get an idea about this epigastrium. And so this is umbilical region. Actually, if you see, this is quite a big area, especially the fatty abdomen, if you see carefully. So why I am trying to tell this, because I am not discussing colon. I have seen students giving a diagnosis of a colonic mass somewhere here. So that is not correct. No doubt the stomach is the most common and the liver, two things are there. So always draw the diagram of the mass, so that you will get an idea that what are the things which you have to see. And I have to specifically mention every time that always remember spine, scrotum, supraclavicular node, and I mentioned swelling in the loin. It's basically not truly here, but is a policy that I have checked the renal angles, I have checked spine. So this is the completion list for you. So with this background, we'll proceed now. Again, you do the superficial palpation just to know that in the abdominal wall. So I am again not discussing the abdominal wall. Those are those lipomas, neurofibromas, desmoids. Female patients, endometriosis also will come in the abdominal wall, not exactly here, maybe here, but in the suprapubic region. But so this is the just to so that you know that they contract the the head raising test. Those masses become more prominent. So this is how you say. So this is one problem is there in carcinoma of the stomach, especially a lot of ascites patients you may get with a mass. Sometimes you may have to dip in the epigastrium so as to feel the mass there. Okay, so this is what you should know. And in last class I had mentioned to you about the Nicholson's method, right? So with this, these are some of the basics which we have discussed last time. Now let us talk about the epigastric mass, right? So moment you say epigastrium, few things in the mind everybody should know. Okay, the most common is the liver, which comes there. I will be just touching upon the liver because when I discuss hypochondrium, I have given all the details. Stomach is the most common pathology, and every one of you are interested to know about the pathology, that is the carcinoma of the stomach there. Next comes the pancreas, and of course when I say pancreas, include this empty space lesser sac, including that so-called the pseudocyst of the pancreas. As you go deeper, paraaortic nodes will come there, epigastrium as well as umbilical region. So don't forget this. Yes, I have included aorta for all purposes. We don't keep aortic aneurysm for postgraduates for the fear of the ruptures, but as PGs you should know. Then we have this retroperitoneum, and don't forget this omentum. I have something to talk about omentum because omentum can be a granular structure in tuberculosis, very well felt in the epigastrium. Omentum can be the seat of nodules, very much metastasis can occur there, and omentum can have a cyst. Young patient, you can have a omental cyst. So very many times postgraduate level, you people will forget about this omentum. So omental nodules or tuberculosis or granularity or metastasis, and omental cyst. So this is just to give you a list. So once you know what anatomy is there, what anatomical structures are there, then you have to go accordingly. Yes. So if you have a dull aching pain, obviously it is the liver there mostly, and pain suggestive of acute pancreatitis means you know what to suspect. Obviously, patient might have had acute pancreatitis. He comes after 4 to 6 weeks. That is the pseudocyst to the pancreas. One of the important features of carcinoma pancreas is weight loss. But here, one specific question you have to ask in all these patients, what has been called early satiety. You know that it's not that a failure to eat or something. They do eat, but they say it's full because stomach loses the capacity of receptive relaxation. Especially this Linitis variety, where its musculature is involved, stomach cannot distend. So eat a very small quantity of the food, you know, and they become full. A dyspepsia of certain food items which they like, again, they will not be able to take. So loss of appetite. So 3 A's are popularly, you know, asthenia, anemia, anorexia. Again, I repeat, don't be carried away too much by that, but they are definitely features of carcinoma stomach, but you can also get in other diseases. If a patient has got vomiting, you have to take details because remember, pyloric antral carcinoma, the mass will be in the epigastrium only, but when I say epigastrium, it is more to the right side. As I told you, hypochondrium is very small. So you have to get the more details about the vomiting, especially if there is a gastric outlet obstruction. One terminology is for that is pyloric stenosis, say gastric outlet obstruction with the persistent profuse non-bilious vomiting, right? In carcinoma of the stomach, the opening may not be totally occluded, little bile comes. So just because he says occasional bile, that doesn't completely rule out pyloric obstruction. Yes, hematemesis is important. Now you ask the fever nature. Why do you ask the history of fever here? Remember, it's epigastrium. If patient has got some fever and abdominal mass, oh, it could be, don't forget last time I mentioned to you about chronic amoebic liver abscess as well as hydatid cyst and acute pancreatitis, the pseudocyst, you can also get some infection. Jaundice, again, related to your patient, advanced carcinoma of the stomach, advanced carcinoma of the pancreas with metastasis, with the nodes, you can get jaundice. So details about the jaundice, hematemesis and melena, features related to your case is carcinoma of the stomach. Mostly 10 to 15-20% of them will have a hematemesis, melena, and alcohol consumption, drugs, diabetes, hypertension. All these things I think last time I had mentioned to you. We'll talk about this later one by one. So just keep it in mind, this early satiety, one key important issue here. Vomiting, more details, and pain. So pain, is it dull aching continuous like a liver, or pain is some kind of a burning, a dyspeptic like a stomach, or pain of pancreatitis, or severe pain radiated to the back of carcinoma pancreas. A general question, why you get anemia in cancer patient? Commonly everybody is asking this question. Yes, everyone talks about nutrition. Yes, definitely. Cancers, especially breast or leukemia, lymphoma, myeloma, they can invade the bone marrow, especially myeloma. Cancer can cause some immunological changes, release some cytokines. I think I mentioned to you when I took carcinoma cecum. Cecum is especially notorious for some kind of a bone marrow depression resulting in anemia. Cancers do produce bleeding like stomach. Cancer patient may be taking radiotherapy or chemotherapy, etc. So this is the usual common list in which you get a carcinoma of the stomach patient or any other cancer patient developing anemia. But I also want you to concentrate here for a slide. I have put one big slide. In stomach particularly, achlorhydria is the feature. And achlorhydria results in poor conversion of ferrous to ferric, which is required for absorption of the iron in the duodenum. So this is responsible for anemia in most of the cases of carcinoma of the stomach, in addition to the causes which I mentioned to you earlier. So remember the incidence is almost about 40% of carcinoma stomach patients have anemia. So this is one of the things I want you to remember, achlorhydria, and that is responsible for this conversion ferrous to ferric. That's poor now. So absorption of the iron takes place in the duodenum, and this is responsible for anemia, right? Because many times your patients may not have hematemesis, may not have melena, but they are anemic. This is the explanation given. Yes. You do ask these questions, no? Previous admissions, blood transfusions, hepatitis, any previous medications, and you asked about surgery. In particular, last class I mentioned about surgery for liver metastasis. Here, stump carcinoma. Postgraduates have relatively a lesser idea about the vagotomy GJ nowadays because, or not commonly done, rarely done, because the incidence of peptic ulcer disease itself is less. However, you should realize that we might have done, our generation, we have done these cases, and you will get in the exam a case of a stump carcinoma. Stump carcinoma refers to patient who has undergone a gastrojejunectomy, and in that stump, and patient has developed a carcinoma. Okay, so you should ask history of previous any incisions. Just to, this is that GJ. Can you see the afferent loop and efferent loop? This is intestine. This is stomach, and there's a growth there. So this is the gastrectomy specimen of a stump carcinoma, right? So you ask you then do the general examination, pallor, icterus, etc. And this is what you do normally for an upper abdominal epigastric mass. I don't think there is anything very particular. If you have any questions, you can ask little later, because up to now it's not difficult for history taking. Keep in mind organs: stomach, liver, pancreas, and of course the retroperitoneum. This history you will ask, so that in epigastric mass which is given to you, it will be clear, right? Okay. So that's what you look for: anemia. And of course, last time I told you a quick one, palpate the supraclavicular region for any notes. You do it later also, but just keep it in mind. So with this, you start the inspection, and like any other, you examine all the quadrants. Last time I mentioned to you, only if the mass is clearly seen you describe, otherwise say fullness, and fullness has no dimension. So when the abdomen is distended, better to say fullness is seen rather than mass is seen, especially in cases of ascites. So this is a typical patient with the carcinoma pyloric antrum, and with a gastric outlet obstruction which has been prepared actually for surgery. That's why you can see the complete so-called the concave abdomen here. It's been vomiting, emaciated, and he was on Ryle's tube. Aspiration has been done. So this is what you observe now, that abdomen is concave. If there is ascites, last time we did how to differentiate tense ascites from ovarian tumor. In the ovarian tumor, this distance is more. But look at this now, from epigastrium to the umbilicus. This is more, that's called a tannual sign. Yeah, that's a distended abdomen. Now the one important thing under, as you start inspecting the abdomen, apart from you say all quadrants move equally with the respiration, hernial orifices, I mentioned to you about the umbilicus, if there's anything, if you see, otherwise not required, like Sister Joseph's nodule. Just observe the epigastrium very carefully, and you see anything is visible there. If you see a wave, you know, please remember, this is a transitional wave. This is not permanent. Visible gastric peristalsis, you may be able to see without any inducing. You don't have to do anything. Sometimes it is seen, lucky. If you don't see, just stimulate the abdominal wall or ask the patient to drink water till he is full. You can't go on loading him with the liters and liters. Maybe 500 to 700 ml of water. By the time he feels full, wait for some time. You may be able to see the peristalsis. Nicely mentioned here. Stomach that you see, stomach that you feel means when the contraction is there, you just put your hand here. You may be able to feel the contraction. That's like a intussusception, the classically mentioned no for intussusception. And stomach that you hear is nothing but your succussion splash. So visible gastric peristalsis, and you on height of contraction you palpate, and succussion splash. That's what it means by this statement. Stomach that you see, stomach that you feel, and stomach that you hear. So distended stomach, fullness and peristalsis should not be described as mass. I have seen in one of the exams, not now, long back, some people described this as a mass and said, and when we started palpating, there was nothing. No, sir, it was there and it disappeared. Array, is it intussusception? No, it was a wave of peristalsis. So peristalsis should not be described as a mass. So wait patiently, say there is a wave of peristalsis running across. This typically happens if there is a obstruction in somewhere here, whether it's a carcinoma pyloric antrum or chronic duodenal ulcer with the stenosis. In pyloric antral carcinoma, lump is palpable. In cicatrized duodenal ulcer with the stenosis is not palpable, right? We'll come to that little later about this gastric peristalsis, then I will take questions. This is what I meant by an important observation and inspection. In addition to size, all that you described visible gastric peristalsis, any abdominal scar, especially laparotomy scar. I did mention to you just now that patients who are having a stump carcinoma might have been operated 25 years back for a GJ. Carefully you look now. Yes, there is a scar and there's a mass here. So obviously this is an epigastric mass in a previous scar. So most probably it should be a gastric remnant carcinoma, also called as stump carcinoma. Okay. So you started palpating. Last time I have told you 10 points. Location, extent, size, shape, surface, border. Any upper abdominal mass, this is important. It's not important if you in a mass in the umbilical region, but this is important here. Movement with respiration, finger insinuation, consistency, mobility and fixity, and of course plane of the swelling. Always remember, each organ or a disease process has got some characters which others may not have. We have to look very carefully. As you see the slides, you will understand this. So this is the basic list, checklist. Each organ or disease I mentioned. I will quickly give an example. A pancreatic tumor, when I say in epigastrium, refers to obviously it is should arise from the body, or a para-aortic nodes may demonstrate a transmitted pulsations. Correct? That is because they are very close to the aorta. This feature is not there for liver and stomach. That is what I meant by each organ or each disease. You know the liver, a classical liver will have a sharp border, which is never seen in stomach, nor for pancreas, nor for para-aortic lymph nodes. Now, so that is the important thing to note, very characteristic list. This here is the general list of your checklist, and then look for any additional feature which will help you in the diagnosis. So important, some tips on palpation. First decide an organ. Am I dealing with the liver? Oh, it is moving with the respiration. It is dull. Then what may be the pathology? We have discussed this liver. Is it a hepatic tumor or is it some cyst? If it is a cyst, don't say intra-abdominal cyst causing fluctuation. Don't say pseudocyst, I am eliciting fluctuation. No. All intra-abdominal cystic swellings will feel firm. There is no fluctuation demonstrated for intra-abdominal swelling. Maximum you can say, sir, it yields to pressure. As you put pressure on that, that itself may say that, oh, this could be fluid. And is it a hard mass? Then this is what is the list for you to consider. So, because your time is also important, 45 minutes, history taking, clinical examination, quickly, or is it an inflammatory pathology? Is it neoplastic pathology? Is it a cystic swelling or is it a heart swelling? This is the most important first step for you to realize. So then what ultimately makes your diagnosis? This is the list. Is it consistency, mobility, fixity, getting border, and movement with the respiration, right? So your abdominal mass in the epigastrium was little bit tender. Immediately what you should realize is this. These two I have not, these two for the completion sake, but I mentioned to you last time, these three you have to consider for a liver which is tender, hepatoma, liver abscess, and infected hydrated cyst. I will not take more time for this. Your case is a tender stomach mass, but remember it is a rare. I am telling rare. You don't get a tender stomach mass. If at all, a large carcinoma of the stomach might have given me a little bit. In the epigastrium, it may be tender. So that's the reason I mentioned to you. Only palpable mass from the stomach for PG exam is carcinoma of the stomach. Please remember this. Only palpable mass from the stomach for PGs is carcinoma of the stomach, which is non-tender. Non-tender. Other two mentioned only when the question is asked to you. So for all practical purposes, if there's tenderness, stomach should not be considered at all. First you think of the liver and then you think of pancreas. So pseudocyst, for example, you can see here, very tense pseudocyst can give rise to tenderness. And extreme tenderness can be a feature of walled-off necrosis. Please remember, we don't give a diagnosis of walled-off necrosis. But remember today with more ultrasound, more CT scan, you may get a patient who is 4 weeks of pancreatitis with epigastric mass. If it is so much tender, it doesn't go for a pseudocyst, but it goes for a walled-off necrosis. Say pseudocyst first, then they ask you why it is tender, then give this answer. And last, only for completion, we don't keep such cases as I mentioned to you. Very elderly people, this is one possibility to be kept in mind. So movement with the respiration, the most common, one of the things which everyone is interested. If it is the liver, easy. If it is the stomach, easy. But remember, your case is a pseudocyst to the pancreas, mass moves with the respiration. How should I explain? This is the explanation. Large pseudocyst in contact with the diaphragm moves with the respiration. So what I mean to say here by, do not jump into any conclusion based on one clinical finding. Ask a question to yourself, how can I explain this finding when I give this diagnosis? So just some kind of a common sense with the thinking in the mind, try to answer these questions. Again, intrinsic mobility. Please remember, to demonstrate this, you should be able to hold the swelling. So liver and pancreas, very difficult. You can't hold it. So let us say no mobility. When I say pancreas, I am referring to adenocarcinoma pancreas. Stomach may have some mobility. Again, every rule has got an exception. If there's an inferior surface liver, there can be a tumor which is coming down. You may be able to hold it a little bit, but remember that is not a rule, that's an exception. So if your organ has got intrinsic mobility, liver is ruled out, adenocarcinoma pancreas is ruled out, you're left with the stomach and other possibilities. Upper border is typical, everybody asks this question, You can't insinuate for a liver mass, obviously. But sometimes you will get one large nodule. It is a dome, dome shape, very close to the epigastrium. You may think that I have gone above the upper border, but may not be truly. You might have just reached the upper border you have just gone up the dome, but you have not been able to insinuate the test. This problem comes when you have got a epigastric mass very high up with the differentiation of stomach from the liver. A large stomach mass from the liver. That is the time this will help you. And in the liver it is not possible. In the stomach it should be possible. And so exceptions. You see the large pseudocyst and large cystadenomas very close to the diaphragm. Difficult to insinuate the finger. So when we say I cannot insinuate the finger and you are giving a diagnosis of a pseudocyst, you should be able to explain such very large cyst, quite very close to the costal margins. So I am finding difficult. That's the better word to say. Look at this swelling here. This is a large pseudocyst, very large one. This is the costal margin. Here you see, that's what I meant by a dome. Like thing you go up and you may get a feeling, but it's very, very large cyst here. So it's not possible for you to insinuate. Sometimes it is very close to the diaphragm. This is the pseudocyst of the pancreas. So movement with the respiration, stomach, liver, omentum, these three no. Pancreas, paraaortic, retroperitoneal mass, no. So these three, yes, right. You are going to palpate for other masses, which depends upon your case. You suspect a secondaries in the liver, you look for primary, either it could be a stomach itself, carcinoma, etc. Your case is a portal hypertension, you look for the spleen. So depends upon your case, look for any mass and do the percussion, the dullness. Stomach gives an impaired resonant note. What it means is, normally stomach contains air. In empty stomach, definitely. There's a carcinoma inside, maybe body. That carcinoma with this will give some kind of an impaired resonant, not truly a resonant, because it also contains gastric acid fluid. So this is what is mentioned. So liver is dull, no doubt. So that's the important thing. Especially epigastrium, as you come down from the liver. Liver is dull. If you find suddenly change in the note, oh, that could be a stomach mass. It's carcinoma. Of course, you look for shifting dullness and auscultate for bruit over the liver mass. And knee elbow test, hardly any role. Please do not make the patient to do the knee elbow for a carcinoma stomach or a liver mass, or even for that matter, carcinoma pancreas. They are all very sick patients. It hardly gives any information. Mass moves with the respiration. You don't do knee elbow because it is intraperitoneal. If you have felt a mass not moving with the respiration, again it's a pancreatic mass. Fixed mass, not required. In general, knee elbow test is practically abundant in the clinical examination. Maximum you can do is what called as postural variations. Sometimes you may get a mass, have a postural variation. When I say you turn to the left side or turn to the right side, some cystadenoma of the pancreas, you may be able to feel in this way. So, but not in general. We don't do the knee elbow test. Ausculto percussion test again. Some examiners may ask you only if you suspect a pyloric obstruction due to carcinoma stomach or pyloric stenosis. Okay. Truly speaking, chronic duodenal ulcer with the stenosis, there is no mass palpable. There's no mass palpable. It's only that visible gastric peristalsis. Carcinoma pyloric antrum, there may be some kind of a distended stomach here, partly may show some peristalsis. If this question is asked, This is the stretch you hold there, percus. This is dull because stomach. You get a resonant note, draw the line like this. So that is your greater curvature. So that just to mention, some of the examiner may ask you, I won't ask this question because I don't find it's very useful test. Succussion splash, yes, hold the stomach and move. But this test I will not usually ask. If you have any other questions, you can ask me later. But we'll just conclude the clinical examination. So do not forget ascites, Krukenberg, in males testis, because hard nodular mass can be lymph nodal mass, supraclavicle node, rectal examination, skull and spine, especially hepatocellular carcinoma, can give metastasis in the spine. So that the supraclavicular node examination, sick patient, female patient, distended stomach, she had ascites. So this I already mentioned to you. So this is the diagnosis which you are going to give. From the liver, you have felt a mass from the liver. Think these two diagnoses, because the mass is hard and irregular. Okay, you have got a hard and irregular mass. These two diagnoses. When I took hypochondrium, I mentioned to you two differences. You got a stomach mass, think of only one. When it comes to the stomach, think of carcinoma stomach. It's not carcinoma stomach because it moves with the respiration. Now go to the retroperitoneum. When I say carcinoma pancreas, it's from the body. It's adenocarcinoma or retroperitoneal sarcomas. You know, they can occupy any quadrant. Or is a parietic nodes? Is it a metastatic or lymphoma? So this is one quick crucial point, very crucial. First find out, is it hard and nodular? If it is a liver, this. If it is stomach, retroperitoneum, parietic nodes. No, it is tensely cystic or a firm mass. Is it from the liver? I've given you last class 3-4 diagnosis. Hydatid cyst, polycystic disease, including hemangiomas. Pancreas means pseudocyst and cystadenoma. And retroperitoneum means retroperitoneal cyst, right? So I will stop for 1 or 2 minutes, take questions about clinical examination of the epigastric mass. Now we go to the differential diagnosis. Please ask some questions.
Sir, could you please explain ausculto percussion test?
Yeah. Madam, this is the patient who had persistent vomiting. He had a persistent vomiting. The idea of doing this test is to know whether the stomach is dilated or not. You might have seen the visible gastric peristalsis. Now you are keeping the stent in the epigastrium here, and see, and who is holding it? Patient is holding. Now you see this first figure. He has started percussing. You started percuss. This is a dull. Why it is dull? Stomach contains fluid, because it's a case of gastric outlet obstruction. So you start percussing, dull note. Now as you come to the greater curvature, somewhere here intestine will be there, no? So you get resonant note, resonant. So percuss, 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 percuss. Either say ausculto percussion or even scratching test. It's called a scratching test. So once you join this, you get the greater curvature. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But you know, some old examiners may ask you this question. So that is the reason why just you need to know the principle behind doing the test to know greater curvature. If you see carefully, visible gastric peristalsis wave, that itself will tell you where will be the greater curvature. I'll take any other questions for the clinical examination of epigastric mass.
Sir, any mass, how to differentiate is retroperitoneal or intraperitoneal, except in the knee elbow position?
I have already mentioned to you, intraperitoneal mass moves with respiration. retroperitoneal mass does not move with the respiration. Is it clear to you? So why I am
Sir.
telling, because retroperitoneal masses are usually, they are fixed. They do not fall forward. But intraperitoneal mass fall forward. That is the logic behind doing the knee elbow test. Okay. But I mentioned to you, a superficial epigastrium, here you feel a mass which moves with the respiration. It has to be stomach or liver. There's no point in putting the patient in knee elbow position, causing discomfort. Okay. Is it clear?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
sir,
Okay.
what will be the trop space percussion in carcinoma stomach?
Sorry.
Sir, trop space percussion
Trop
in carcinoma stomach.
Drop space is not very much relevant in this patient unless very, very grossly dilated stomach here. That becomes relevant in a patient who has got a splenomegaly. Okay, right? Not here. Forget about drop space percussion in a stomach. Yes. Next.
Sir,
Yes.
is any role to identify the greater curvature outline in the management of the outlet obstruction?
You are talking about this greater curvature.
Yeah, is any role in the management to line out this greater curvature?
There is no role, because this is only practically this is only a distended stomach, not the diseased stomach. There is a difference. This is only a distended stomach due to hypertrophy. Is it clear?
Yes.
So if this is not a diseased stomach like a linitis plastica, the whole purpose of doing this is not for linitis plastica. This is for only a small pyloric enteral carcinoma with a hugely dilated stomach. Your question, I think, is that probably you want to ask that in linitis plastica, the whole stomach is involved. If so, yes, planning changes to, you may have to do a radical gastrectomy with esophageal anastomosis versus a subtotal gastrectomy. So your question is very clear. I suppose I have given the answer. Right.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Shall we proceed? Yeah. Any other question? Last question?
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, can you demonstrate or can you explain the succussion splash, in which position it should be done? Where should we keep our stetho, and what should be the movement?
Yeah. Okay, since you asked that question, succussion splash to be done on empty stomach, number one. So if you are the first candidate in MS examination in this type of patient, you should not give fluid for the patient to demonstrate visible gastric peristalsis. Try to understand what I am telling. 9 o'clock morning, first case is yours. So don't give patient fluid to demonstrate the visible gastric peristalsis. First, check the succussion splash on empty stomach. It is a splashing sound. You are going to hear without the stent or with the stent. Exactly, this is the picture which shows you keep the stent there and shake the abdomen. Shake the abdomen. It's just to shake the abdomen that you see that you will get the splashing sound. It should be done first before giving the fluid. If you are the first candidate, second candidate has a reason to say, first candidate has already given fluid, sir. So succussion splash is not relevant, because you drink 500 ml of any fluid and sit in the bike and jump, you will also get a succussion splash. I hope it is clear.
Sir, in which position you should do? You should
What
make the
position?
patient to sit, or we can do it in a lying down position also.
If you are not able to get the succussion splash in the lying down position, you can make the patient to sit. Okay. Sitting has slight advantage in a dilated stomach because that fluid will stay there. It can be elicited in both, depends upon your case. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. So this we have finished. Now this so you have got the epigastric mass. Now this the which I have already mentioned to you last time. Why liver? I think I will not repeat. And quickly go through that, because left lobe, which if at all it's a left lobe, hepatoma, nodular, and a thrill or bruit. This is the point to be mentioned in case if you get a mass in the epigastrium, which is left lobe, hepatoma arising from the left lobe, right? Second is in the liver. Again here you can see, but it will be other lobe is also enlarged. This picture is also very clear to you. Last time we have discussed. I have shown you last time hydatid cyst also, but this is right lobe. But remember, you can have here left lobe hydatid cyst. Similar picture. So smooth round. So you give a diagnosis of a hydatid cyst. So summary of the liver mass, because fully we have discussed common, uncommon, rare. 2 diagnoses common, 2 diagnoses uncommon, and 2 diagnoses rare. I think I will quit and go to stomach mass. Right. Your case is typical of a 40-year male, 40-year male, typical 3As like anemia, asthenia, anorexia, short duration, weight loss, early satiety, typical, and you get an epigastric mass, and you suspect the stomach mass. What should I say, sir, in the exam? My first diagnosis is carcinoma stomach. What is my differential diagnosis? Please remember, straightforward case. What other mass, if they ask you, please do not go on answering GIST as a diagnosis or lymphoma as a diagnosis for stomach. Don't say lymphoma of the stomach. Don't say GIST of the stomach. These are not very common tumors, very rare. So examiner may get upset and say, you know, the histological diagnosis. I just want you to understand, but don't write in the university, my first diagnosis is carcinoma of the stomach. Then you say, is a typical case. So I do not consider other 2 diagnoses of stomach, such as lymphoma and the GIST. So that is how you should answer. Don't say GIST second diagnosis and third diagnosis lymphoma. I hope it's clear. As we move the slide, you will know. So I don't have to. Now question comes is, any epigastric mass, why do you say it is stomach? Stomach moves with respiration, but liver also moves with respiration. But upper border of the stomach mass can be easily made out, but in the liver, it is not made out. You know the anatomical location of the mass. Epigastric mass is a typical of a stomach, but pyloric antrum also will be felt in the epigastrium only. Remember that diagram, first diagram which I had put. Don't think that pyloric antral carcinoma is felt in the right hypochondrium. One of the PG exam, one candidate was punished a little bit because of this issue. Most of the time, antral carcinoma is in the epigastrium only. That epigastrium does not mean just below the xiphoid process. It's a little bit bigger quadrant. Try to understand this. So the mass may have intrinsic mobility, and this I have already mentioned to you, resonant note on percussion. So very crucial points for you in university examination. In a given case, why this is a stomach, why not it is a liver? Now, why not it is pancreas? This is what is the important thing you should know. Please remember, exam time frame is limited. You should be able to talk freely immediately, so that save some time and know the answers, whatever you know, quickly, so as to give more chance for the examiners to give you more marks. So stomach and liver is over. Now stomach and pancreas, epigastrium. But look at this carefully, a little lower level of the epigastrium. You know, the first structure in the epigastrium, high up is the liver and stomach, then comes the pancreas. This moves with the respiration, does not move with the respiration. I am talking about adenocarcinoma arising from the body of the pancreas. Intrinsic mobility may or may not be present, but by and large, small early masses, yes. No mobility. Impaired resonant note. Here, depends upon if the growth is fairly big, stomach is anterior to it, so it may give a resonant note. No pulsations. Look at this, a hard nodular mass on the pancreas. Moment to keep it, there are some definitely transmitted pulsations. So I hope it is clear to you the differences between carcinoma of the stomach and a carcinoma pancreas in a 50-year-old male. Both are common in male. You can put it 50-year-old male. Both may be smokers, and early satiety is more for a stomach, but more severe weight loss. Weight loss and backache is more. Look at the things carefully. Carcinoma of the stomach never produces a pain as a feature. But this patient, if he complains of backache, that means the stomach carcinoma may be infiltrating pancreas, giving rise to backache. So try to understand this. When the backache appeared, stomach patient may tell, I have got backache only last 15 days, but I have got early satiety since 2 months. But look at carcinoma pancreas. He says, I have got backache since 2 months. Nowadays, I am not able to eat well, feeling of fullness since 15 days. I hope the point made is clear, how to differentiate the stomach mass from the pancreas mass. Few anatomical important points have been given here. As far as the mobility, as far as the impaired note, as far as the pulsation, and some clinical features of history. If you have any questions of this, 1 or 2, 3 questions I will take for this epigastric mass related to right now between body of the pancreas and the carcinoma pancreas. Please ask. Any questions?
Sir, why will the stomach have no pulsations and the pancreas will have transmitted pulsation? What is the reason?
Stomach is very much anterior structure. When the stomach mass is very much anterior compared to pancreas, which is very, very posterior, and you know, it's very close to the aorta. So you get a nodular mass from the pancreas, means you get a transmitted pulsation. In the stomach, you won't get it unless stomach is also such a large advanced carcinoma with the large celiac nodes posteriorly fixed to the pancreas. That situation, yes. So both are possible, but look at what appeared first. That's what I wanted you to understand. Any other questions? Any other questions?
Sir,
Clear?
please repeat impaired resonant node.
Impaired resonant means, you know, normally stomach contain air. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
If the patient has got some carcinoma, there's a growth there which is a solid tissue. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And also there is some amount of fluid in the stomach, maybe having some stasis, correct?
Yes, sir.
So all this will give rise to a resonant, neither a classical resonant note like what you get in the lungs. Lungs contain pure air. Yes? Yes or no? Yes. So that is why the books have used this word impaired resonant note. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Mixture of solid tissue with air. Any other questions? Okay. Now, this is just want you to understand, upper border is not made out. It could be a liver, it could be a liver or a large pseudocyst here, but upper border is not made out. Here, you can make out here, Professor of Surgery, head of the department from Tirupati, SVMC, my very, very close friend, G. Prakash. So, you can see here, see that? Upper border is demonstrating to you. Now, where you can feel the stomach mass? This is another question they can ask you. Because stomach is a large structure. You see the antrum here. This is the antrum. So antral carcinoma you can feel again in the epigastrium, but to the right side. Antral masses are usually mobile. You can easily get above, and you always feel in the epigastrium only. Whereas if it is from the body, you get in the epigastrium, and even if it is left side, means nearing the fundus area, also you will feel. So stomach masses in the epigastrium can be on the left side, can be in the center, can be on the right side. This is the point you should try to understand. Your case was a pyloric obstruction. This was the antral carcinoma typical here. Typical antral carcinoma. This is the where you feel, and remember it is still epigastrium. Okay. Please watch for the visible gastric peristalsis. Just concentrate for a minute. Typically, the wave starts in the left hypochondrium, comes here. Look at that wave. Watch carefully. See now. See now. See now. See now. And see where it is ending. Anybody wants to ask questions on visible gastric peristalsis? Please ask.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Patient with gastric outlet obstruction, I already done gastric decompression by rice tube, and next day they are the same case provided in the for exam. It is ethical to give water.
See, I have already told you they have decompressed, but I told you first to demonstrate succussion splash, and after that you can give, as I mentioned to you, give as much as patient who says I am full now. It's maybe 1 liter or 2 liter, depends upon your case, how much stomach is distended. Then you just give some flickering movements to the abdominal wall, stimulate the abdominal wall. You may be able to get the visible gastric peristalsis. We will take some more questions on this. In the meantime, you can watch. Any questions? So you can see great curvature. Carefully you watch. This is umbilicus. So see the great curvature. Normally, see the lesser curvature. See this. So there are 3 tests mentioned in the books. Visible gastric peristalsis is the most important thing which examiners expect from you. Rest depends upon your examiners and your center. Nice to know. If you want to get more marks, they may ask you. It's not the thing that should be done, nothing like that. If you know it, well and good. Just read about them if you are not understood. Concentrate on this CT scan for some time. Concentrate on this CT scan for some time. The reason why I put also, I will tell you. You see carefully, this is the carcinoma pyloric antrum here. That means this is a duodenum. This much of the stomach is gone here, and this is the dilated stomach. So what it means to say is, half of the stomach is affected by the growth. In pyloric stenosis due to chronic cicatrized duodenal ulcer, entire stomach is normal, but tight stenosis of the gastric outlet. So stomach gets dilated. You get a classical VGP in a patient who has got only an antral carcinoma or cicatrized duodenal ulcer. If it is a carcinoma stomach antrum infiltrating like this, part of the stomach half, you will not be able to demonstrate a proper visible gastric peristalsis. If anybody is asked question, because this is a very important part, please ask the question. I hope it is clear, the message.
Sir, can you repeat, please?
In a patient who has got chronic duodenal ulcer with the stenosis, rest of the stomach is normal, which is dilated. So you get a classical VGP. Number one. Clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Second, if your case is a carcinoma pyloric antrum, only here, is called as earlier, they used to be called localized linitis plastica. Localized. In that case, also you will get the VGP because it's only the problem is here, small area. Otherwise, stomach is dilated. But remember, in infiltrative lesions of a carcinoma extending to the both lesser curvature and also greater curvature here, to have a peristalsis, it stops here. That means you will never get a classical peristalsis. That is what I am trying to tell. Is it clear now? No.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So with this, we'll move on to the next slide now. So again, I have put only for you to understand the scenario. Look here. Look here, antral carcinoma going into, see here. This much is affected. So if you, this is the barium. And if you ask the patient to drink water and look for VGP, you will see only here. See from here to here. Now look at this picture. Look at this. Look at this. So this is the classical cicatrized duodenal ulcer with the stenosis causing a very big J-shaped stomach. So this is what I mean to say by the visible gastric peristalsis. So diffuse variety, whole stomach is involved, whole stomach. That is what you will never get the VGP because there's no distended stomach. I hope it's clear. Such a large mass in the epigastrium could be due to a growth and the lymph nodes and omentum. This you should know. When you have a big mass in the epigastrium, if you want to say carcinoma of the stomach, you should be able to say is the lymph nodes, omentum and the stomach. That's what was the linitis plastica. I would like to come to a second important situation here. This was again MS examination in our university. A postgraduate has very beautifully depicted the mass here. Look here, such a large mass. Look at that mass. Look at how nicely he has dig the stomach mass and arising like this. It was so freely mobile. Patient is 45-year-old, 3 months duration only, large nodular mass, freely mobile, and the patient is no general condition is very good, no anemia, no asthenia, no anorexia. Try to understand this. In this situation, this is what is the clinical picture on table. Look at that. Look at this. Can you give a diagnosis of carcinoma of the stomach? Any student can answer.
Yes, sir.
Tell.
Diatonic stomach.
Sir, can you give details about vomiting?
Vomiting is occasional vomiting, very few vomiting. I said he is perfectly fine. No, he had one attack of hematemesis. Appetite is good. No weight loss. Freely mobile mass. Freely mobile. It's nodular mass. Right? See the size? Look at the size. It's all looking like stomach only. Upper body is well made out. Lower
So
body
something
is
with
well made.
omental mass.
Sir,
Sorry?
moves with respiration or not?
It moves with respiration.
Something with omental mass.
You can think of momentum, but you should correlate everything. Such a large mass, nodular mass, so freely mobile. So, point which I am trying to tell is.
Sir, can you tell me the character of pain? Looks like a pancreatic pain or gastric pain?
I said it is gastric. I already told you it's a gastric mass. It is not from pancreas because it moves with the respiration. So freely mobile mass. So I'm coming to an important point for you to understand what I told you. What I had told you, don't give a diagnosis in the beginning. Nowadays, the examiners like me will accept provided your case is, I said no anemia, no asthenia, no anorexia, general condition was good, young patient, large mass, which was freely mobile. Gysts are usually extraluminal. Gysts are not intraluminal. They are usually from the submucosa. So only with a small ulceration in the mucosa, you can get a little bit of bleeding into the stomach. Otherwise, they grow more outside, and they are the one which produces large stomach masses. In the university examination, if examiner asks you which is the large stomach mass, if at all you want to consider, you can tell them gastrointestinal stomal tumors, also called a GIST. But a caution or a warning, if a patient epigastric mass freely moves with the respiration, I said, tympanic note was there, and such a mass, you do no doubt do consider carcinoma of the stomach, but he has no anemia, asthenia, anorexia. Because of these reasons, I am not considering pancreas because it is intraperitoneal, moves with the respiration. So I would like to consider possibility of a large tumor arising from the stomach. You say that and stop. Large tumor arising from the stomach may be extraluminal, and that is what is stomal tumors. If anybody asks any questions, I will take it. Please ask.
Why this patient have pain, sir?
Sorry?
Why this patient have pain, sir? Just patient?
Pain?
Yes, sir.
They will not have much pain other than discomfort. Actually, there is not much of a pain. Because the size is big, they may complain of some amount of pain. And a ulceration into the stomach, a little poor quality picture, endoscopy showing an ulceration in that large gist here. This is called as the cervix appearance. Cervix appearance in endoscopy. That was the ulceration and bleeding. That was the reason why he was having some amount of vague discomfort. Yes. Any other question?
Sir, can it be carcinoma of the stomach with omental lymph nodes aggregated?
Please remember, as I already told you, such a large carcinoma means you know how much time would have been there, what will be the growth. You will never give a diagnosis based on one important finding, but you will also take into consideration everything. Yes, patient would have been having ascites, etc. In carcinoma stomach, momentum is involved, you will get ascites. There's no doubt about it. Okay? So please keep it in mind. Those things. Yes. Any other question?
So mass in the picture, sir.
Yes. Yes.
So next picture.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, sir. This laparotomy image mass.
Yeah, this is a laparotomy finding of the mass. This is a mass.
Yes. Yes, sir.
And I will show the resected specimen. Look at that.
Okay, sir.
Look at that. This I have brought purposefully to show you. This is what is such a bosulations of the gist. Carcinoma stomach will never produce this kind of a picture. Okay. So this is the fleshy. After all, these are a soft tissue. No, you can make out. See that?
Yes,
so this
sir.
Is, I also showed you linitis plastica picture. No.
Yes, sir.
See this and see this. Look at that. See.
Yes,
look at the difference between this is classical diffuse variety and this is gist, right? That's the cervix appearance. Okay.
Okay.
This is the tumor. This is another. This was that small area mucosal ulceration. It was such a large tumor, but we could. This is the tumor. Actually, we are not done gastrectomy in this patient. Only a portion of the stomach is removed, but it was very, very close to the fundus, and in that case, spleen was sacrificed. Right? So I just want you to keep it in mind only. Keep it in mind just, but don't give a diagnosis immediately. Look at your patient. If patient is younger patient, and if such a large tumor which is mobile with the nodular surface, somehow it is not fit in with carcinoma stomach, general condition is good. Look at this, very large mass and no ascites, no virchow node, and then say it could be something else arising from the stomach. Let the examiner ask you what is the possibility. Then you say it could be stomal tumors. I think because stomach is the most common site of a stomal tumor, right? Now we'll come to the pancreatic tumor. The most common one is pseudocyst, and you should also consider cystic neoplasms and adenocarcinoma. When I say arising from the body, I am not talking about the periampullary carcinoma. This is the tumor in the epigastrium. It is only confined to adenocarcinoma. Yes. Favorite questions? What are the 5 features to say pancreatic mass? Remember, I have already told you difference between stomach and pancreas. More or less similar thing here. Last word is important here. Transmitted pulsations, no intrinsic mobility, does not move the respiration. Upper border can be made out like a stomach. Like a stomach. This is also like a stomach. But these three are against stomach. So this is how you should answer in the examination. Now, this is the case, right? Can one of you come forward and to present this case? 30-year-old male alcoholic presenting after 6 weeks of acute pancreatitis. History I have already given to you with this swelling. With this swelling, can somebody give me the 10 important findings on inspection, please?
There is fullness in the epigastrium, right hypochondrium, left hypochondrium, and umbilical region, sir. Surface is smooth.
Last time I have told you, if it is a fullness, no dimensions. This is an epigastric mass which was visible. That's why I put mark. Straight away say there's a mass in the epigastrium extending into the umbilical region. Go ahead.
Surface is smooth.
Go ahead.
It doesn't move with respiration. Dull to percus.
I told you to start the inspection and you went on to percus. See, please do not do such mistakes in the examination. A surface is smooth. Borders
are well defined.
Clear. Upper one was not clear. Surrounding skin or surrounding area and any pulsations which are visible, you should mention. Okay. Location, extent, size, shape, surface, border, and rest of the things. On palpation wise, it was tensely cystic other than the size, shape, surface. See, surface is smooth. Borders are well defined. Upper border could be made out here. You keep your fingers here and ask the patient to take very deep inspiration. Very deep. Sometimes you may be able to get the movement. That doesn't mean it is liver. That doesn't mean it is stomach, because you already told upper body is very clear. I hope I'm making the points very clear. So it is your duty to say that clinical findings have to be mentioned. If examiner says, no, I got a movement with the respiration, your answer should be, sir, upper body is well made out. Maybe it is in close contact with the liver or diaphragm there. But when you take the deep inspiration, obviously diaphragm will come down. So this also moves down. I hope it's clear, right? Surface consistency is firm. Don't say cystic. Just look at this picture here. That's a typical CT scan showing the pseudocyst. This is how it is look like in the hypodense, sorry. So this is a pseudocyst here. Now consistency was over. Mobility, it did not have much mobility and does not move with the respiration, and it was non-tender. And what is the other important test which you have to do? Biradar?
Finger insinuation.
Upper border is well made out, finger insinuation not required. Okay? Look here. Don't cause pain. Don't expect too much finger insinuation. What I want you to remember is pulsations.
Okay.
Okay? I told you, no? Pseudocyst. This is important point to differentiate. I'll ask you, Biradar only, why not it is left lobe hepatic hydrated cyst?
Sir, it doesn't move with respiration, sir.
Yes. Number
Number
two.
one. Extension is into the umbilical area.
History of pain followed by which follows swelling, sir.
No. Don't tell history now. Based on the finding, why not left lobe hydrated cyst? One is said, one, the mass does
Upper border.
It doesn't move with the respiration.
does not move with the respiration. Upper body is well made out. Number three,
pulsation is present.
and transmitted pulse.
Transmitted
Number four, important is dullness.
Dullness.
Liver is dull. This is there will be a change of resonant note
No
here.
intrinsic mobility, sir.
Correct. You can mention, but liver hydrated cyst left lobe may not have intrinsic mobility. But important is dullness. Okay.
Transmitted pulsation.
Pulsations is transmitted pulsation from the aorta, felt over the pseudocyst, may not be over the liver because it's very much anterior structure. Is it clear or not clear?
Hello, sir.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, please ask.
Sir, we said that the borders are clearly visible, well defined. But then how can we not give dimensions, sir?
You can give dimension. Who said?
Because you've described it as a fullness, sir.
That is what I said. On inspection, if you say fullness, over. If you are able to see the border, mass is seen. Only mass has got dimension. Fullness is no. No
Hello, sir.
confusion. Yeah, please.
Sir, how to describe extent of the mass on inspection?
On inspection, a mass is visible in the epigastrium extending to, see here, where it is extending. See, portion of the right hypochondrium. Here maybe up to here. Here it is almost reaching the portion of the umbilical region. What is the problem? I don't find any difficulty in answering this question.
But sometimes, sir, if walls, borders are not well defined, just
Say
only
not well
fullness.
defined. Say not well defined. That is
Sir,
why
should we describe
inspection
it
wise
as
we only use the word approximately, no? Approximately.
Okay, sir.
If you are not able to get the upper border, say I cannot make out, diffuse. Approximately measuring 8 by 10. You know definitely this is epigastrium, no? Yes, or no?
Yes, sir.
Say epigastrium. On palpation, it may be going into hypochondrium. Say that. Tell the truth. Don't worry.
Yes,
that's not an issue. Okay.
Sir, should we describe it as this much centimeter from the syphisternum, this much centimeter from the umbilicus, etc., or just epigastrium, right hypochondrium, umbilical area, such that?
That is a one point you can always say. There is a mass visible or say palpable in the epigastrium extending to right and left hypochondrium. If you are palpating, lower border is about 2 fingers above the umbilicus, 3 fingers above the umbilicus. Upper border is 2 centimeters from the xiphoid process. A very good point, because it will tell you then, oh, this is upper border, I can easily make out. Whereas the others, one case which I had put in the initial part, the upper border is very close to the xiphoid process. So then you can't make out from, that's fine. Good. Any other?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other? Okay. So this answer, most of things you answered
Sir,
now.
One more,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
Here, just I am going again back to history. Here, 6 weeks back, there is a history of acute pancreatitis. Now, patient presented with epigastric mass. So, whenever first possibility definitely pseudocyst, but sometime pancreatic cystic neoplasm also presented with pancreatitis. Then how to discuss?
So we will come to the pancreatic cystic neoplasms. Just a little bit later, I will come to the diagnosis of a cystic swelling. Just give me 1 or 2 minutes. So, but remember, I see your question also I have put here. So you have, somebody has answered hepatic cyst. Why not retroperitoneal cyst? Why not retroperitoneal cyst? But always remember, common things are common. So when you are given a diagnosis of a pseudocyst of the pancreas, I will not keep quiet. I will ask you, why not it is a retroperitoneal cyst? Then you should say, sir, there is a strong evidence of history of pancreatitis. So patient has come, patient has got pain. I will tell, patient has pain because there is a hemorrhage in the hemorrhage in the retroperitoneal cyst. So he has come. So this is what you should try to understand. So take into consideration now age of the patient, sex of the patient, pain radiating to the back. If the pain is radiating to the back, it is pancreatitis. Whether the mass moves with the respiration, okay, hydrated cyst of the liver. All these things into consideration, then give a differential diagnosis. So pseudocyst is clear. I will not waste much time here. What is this appearance called as? Just for a quiz question to you. This is a treatment. After 6 or 8 weeks, you do that. No, rule of 6, everybody knows. This is a stomach which is opened and a needle has been put into the cyst. This is called engine oil appearance. The classical 6 weeks old contents of the pancreas, that pseudocyst is engine oil appearance. This is the color. Okay. And your question, somebody asked, why not cystadenoma of the pancreas? Now the person who asked that question, just note very carefully. No doubt it can go up to here also. But please remember, cystadenoma is a tumor arising from the pancreas. Pseudocyst is the collection of the fluid in the potential space. That is the lesser sac. That is why pseudocyst can go as high as possible up to here, even within the mediastinum. You know, within the mediastinum it can go very high. Here you see it can go behind, even in the retroperitoneum. So it can go as much high as possible. So now look at this. There's a difference between mucinous and serous, but definitely points which will help you. Your patient is usually a woman, middle age, painless mass, no pain radiating to the pancreatitis. Rarely you have mentioned that cystadenomas can present as pain or pancreatitis. It's a slow growing. It will not be 4 weeks, 6 weeks. It is much more than that. Typical pancreatic mass. And I mentioned to you, a tree-top mobility means you will be able to hold this mass here, may be able to move a little bit, which is not at all a feature in a patient who has got a pseudocyst of the pancreas. Because this, if you hold this, you will be able to move a little bit, and you may be able to feel a nice thick wall of this. This is important finding which your fingers you have to train. What I am trying to tell is, a case like this pseudocyst, when you try to feel, you can hardly make out the wall. It's smooth surface, round border. Just look at here. Very thin wall. Correct? See? So thin. But you look at the cystadenomas, they usually will have, this is your picture, you will have usually a thick wall. The points for you to help in the exam: the age of the patient, sex of the patient, no features of alcohol, slow growing neoplasm, it can be 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, like that, tree-top mobility, few points which will help you to differentiate cystadenoma from pseudocyst to the pancreas. I think theory part you will read, but quickly to go, mucinous cystadenomas are dangerous because they can go for adenocarcinoma. On the other hand, serous, they do not have the malignant potential. I think theory part you will read. I will stop at this stage for this differential diagnosis and ask question related to your cystadenoma versus pseudocyst of the pancreas. Please ask any question. Any questions? So when you have a
These, sir, in these swellings, we have to ask for any leg raising or head raising test, sir.
no leg raising, head raising. Please do not. A mass which moves with the respiration is intraperitoneal. No head raising and leg raising. That's importance is only for abdominal wall. Okay, abdominal wall. If you feel lesions are in the abdominal wall, you do that test. Otherwise, it is not required. Your diagnosis of pseudocyst, first diagnosis, second diagnosis should be retroperitoneal cyst, third is cystic neoplasms. So in that order, you give the diagnosis in the examination. Any questions?
Treat of mobility.
Treat of mobility is like a, last time I mentioned, like a tree. Trunk of the tree is there, no, it doesn't move, but branches move. The tumor is, this is the pancreas fixed. Tumor is coming from here. So it moves a little bit like this. Only when you are able to hold it and move. Not every patient. So cystadenomas can grow large size. Cystadenomas are notorious for having a mobility, right? So that is why my friend asked that question. So differential diagnosis, when you have a cyst like this, first is pseudocyst. Second, I have ruled out hydatid cyst because at no cost of imagination, this is liver because the dullness, upper border, etc. Second diagnosis, retroperitoneal cyst. What is the most common retroperitoneal cyst? Lymphatic cyst. What is the cause of the pain? It is the hemorrhage. What is the third diagnosis? Cystic tumors. Use the word cystic tumors. And what are the cystic tumors? These two.
Okay.
I hope it is clear. This is containing mucus, so it's more thicker. The wall is better felt here. This is serous, thin, comparatively. This is cuboidal. This is goblet cells are seen. Now the first diagnosis is stomach. We thought of carcinoma stomach and rarely GIST. From the pancreas, I consider pseudocyst should be the number one diagnosis and other differential diagnosis of a cyst. And from adenocarcinoma pancreas presents as hard nodular mass. Is it clear? Hard nodular mass, usual typical 60-70 year smoker. Look at this, severe backache for few months. Severe backache for few months. Loss of weight. This appears first. Carcinoma of the stomach, other way. They will not have backache first. They will have early satiety, later backache. In carcinoma pancreas, backache is the presentation. Severe weight loss. One important point. Recent history of a diabetes in a patient otherwise normal. Otherwise normal. There could be, if a mass is there, more of a pancreatic carcinoma. Is hard fixed. There are two students will usually get confused for this. Trouseous sign is migrating superficial thrombophlebitis of the veins in the leg. Because of the sluggish flow, thrombophlebitis and thrombosis. Troisier sign is the palpable left supraclavicle node. Right? If anyone asks any question, how will I diagnose carcinoma pancreas in the examination? Pancreas is a deep-seated mass. I have already given the table. Remember difference between stomach and pancreas. So important thing is lower epigastrium, fixed mass, transmitted pulsation, little deep-seated. Carcinoma stomach is upper epigastrium, may or may not be fixed mass, but no transmitted pulsation, relatively superficial fixed, moves with the respiration. Pancreas do not move with respiration. Any questions?
Sir, this carcinoma pancreas from the body, generally it is deep-seated. Then how we can palpate clinically? It is little difficult, no, sir?
Carcinoma body is not deep-seated. Most of the patients would have lost weight and you will be able to palpate. Okay, I got your point. If patient is a little bit obesity, you will palpate it deeply. But imagine pancreas. Pancreas is still deeper. Okay. Any other question?
Sir, I just wanted to clarify, over the pseudocyst, percussion will be resonant note or dull, sir?
Over the pseudocyst, if the stomach is so much compressed with hardly any air, it is a, look at this case here. This is a large pseudocyst. Stomach is almost like one thin line here. In that situation, if there is no air, hardly any air, you will not get resonant note. Both are possible, madam.
Okay,
it all depends upon how much tense pseudocyst. If it's too much compressing on the stomach, there will not be any air, so you will get a dull note. Any other questions?
Thank you, sir.
Sir, does retroperitoneal swellings also present with back pain?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
That's why I said pancreas is retroperitoneal for all that matter.
Okay, sir.
We are going to come to the important fourth diagnosis. Is your question para-aortic nodes? Look at this. This is almost like a carcinoma pancreas only. Transmitted pulsation, upper border felt, resonant due to stomach is anterior, nodular fixed mass. Clear or not clear? So whenever you have a patient who has got a mass, almost like carcinoma pancreas, hard nodular, but this person is elderly smoker, 60 to 70-year-old man. This your patient was only 28-year-old young man. See the difference now? 28-year young man. That's why I said we don't give a final diagnosis based on one finding. Anatomically, why do you say it is para-aortic nodes? Anatomically, sir, it's a lymph nodal mass because I get it in the epigastrium. Aorta bifurcates, you know where? Just below the umbilicus. So para-aortic mass is usually got above the umbilicus. That is epigastrium as well as, see here, upper umbilical region. Typical lymph nodes are nodular fixed. They do not move the respiration. They have no mobility. But its anterior position, stomach is there, so resonant, and again transmitted pulsation. But patient is 28-year young man. So you have got to think of testis. Clear? Clear? So this was a testicular tumor. This is a testicular tumor. This is not classical epigastrium, please remember, but I have brought it. These are the different patients. This is a testicular tumor patient having a mass here. Is actually aorta bifurcation. This is another patient. See here how this seminoma patients can present to you. Epigastrium. See here even skirting the hypochondriums. Umbilical region also. Look at another patient. This is umbilicus. So if you draw a line, this is umbilicus and part of the epigastrium and even lumbar. And patient also had a left supraclavicular, and this is the testicular tumor. So again to remind you, whenever you have a patient whom you think is a para-aortic lymph nodal mass by these criteria, no doubt it is almost mimicking like a pancreatic mass. That should be your differential diagnosis. But look at the age of the patient. Look at the testis. Have you examined the testis? Yes. Oh, this could be a testicular tumor. Then pancreas automatically gets ruled out. Okay, in another patient, it is testis is normal. There is no melanoma also. We have discussed this point. What other possibility whenever you have a lymph nodal mass in the para-aortic is the lymph nodal is nothing but lymphoma. Whether your patient has got hepatosplenomegaly, fever and weight loss are there, please consider lymphoma. So whenever you have a para-aortic node mass, if you want to give a diagnosis, because somebody said retroperitoneal mass, if it is hard and nodular, pancreas will come first, lymph nodes will come second, and third should be a retroperitoneal tumor, whatever be the liposarcoma, because that is it can occupy almost any quadrant in the abdomen. So anybody wants to ask any questions before we wind up our today's session? Only few slides. Please ask any questions. Any questions? Any questions? I can't hear. Any questions?
Sir,
Yes.
steatoria and diabetes in pancreatic neoplasms, benign cystadenomas and
You don't, because remember the steatoria is related to endocrinal and exocrinal. We have two functions in pancreas. So diabetes is related to endocrinal function and steatoria is related to exocrinal function. I can't give the statistics of how many percentage will develop steatoria. It is very, very uncommon finding. I have hardly yet to see any patient because don't see many of those. So you don't get that. Okay. But diabetes can be the manifestation of, I said, adenocarcinoma pancreas, especially tropical region. Chronic pancreatitis is a precancerous condition where you will get a carcinoma pancreas. So they usually go for diabetes. Yes. Any question?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, about transverse colon mass is possible in
No, please
the
do not,
epigastrium.
please do not give the transverse colon mass. That is why I have not brought it purposefully, because if you look at the transverse colon, you look at that first picture which I have drawn here, transverse colon is more felt in the epigastrium. So I have not brought it to discussion for reasons, because you people will go on telling that as a possibility. I think let us not consider that. Okay, if at all, it may just skirt the epigastrium, but is more in the umbilical region than in the epigastrium. First picture, that's why you draw those lines, you will understand. Yes, any other question? That's I again repeat, that's my one of the postgraduate. This is how you should always put a diagram, and you look at that hypochondrium is very small, and transverse colon from the flexure, it comes down like this. It is felt somewhere here. So it's difficult to give a diagnosis, but all depends upon your patient's symptoms. And because of the malignancy, if you think it's a large nodular mass with omentum, rarely yes, but I will not consider transverse colon. This picture we have already seen, and abdominal aortic aneurysm, for completion's sake, one slide. Very elderly atherosclerotic is popularly called as AAA, abdominal aortic aneurysm. Epigastrium, auscultation ebrui, tender swelling. Most of them may be a dissecting or maybe partial even impending rupture, weak lower limb pulses, and aneurysm greater than 6 centimeter. They have a tendency to rupture. This is only for theory when they ask you. Last differential diagnosis. When do you suspect omental cyst? Anybody can answer this question.
When it's freely mobile, all direction.
Omental cyst is not mobile in all directions. Okay, because omentum is attached above to the stomach. There are costal margins are there. You can get a transverse mobility. Vertically, there's no place for it to go up. Omental cyst arises from the stomach very close to the omentum, means very close to the diaphragm. Almost like a pseudocyst manifests.
The cyst will be dull to percuss, sir. There will be a zone of resonance around the cyst.
No. This is not a mesenteric cyst or something. This is omental cyst. Omental cyst, no intestine will come anterior. Very large cyst. The most important point here is, number one, age of the patient. Is it a congenital cyst or acquired? It's a congenital. So what is the age of the patient? Usually younger patient. Mesenteric cyst is congenital or acquired? Congenital. You don't expect a 70-year-old man to have a mesenteric cyst, but usually you can have 25 or 20, 25, 30. So younger patient, large cystic swelling, obviously it is a dull to percuss because it's even occupying very much close to the stomach everywhere. The whole cyst is dull because it contains fluid. Movement with the respiration is very free, very, very superficially felt, no other features. Otherwise, patient is normal. Young patient means think of congenital. So it's a omental cyst. Omentum moves with respiration. 3 diagnoses for omentum in the epigastrium. Large cystic swelling is omental cyst. Nodular lesions everywhere is a metastasis, and a granular omentum with some kind of a fluid, sometimes what we call as loculated ascites, not that all that common. You consider tuberculosis as a possibility. So summary, first you have to make out solid or cystic. Solid means liver. 2 common things. Stomach, 1 is common. This is to be kept in your pocket, means only when they ask you. Pancreas means adenocarcinoma. Paralytic nodes, lymphoma and metastasis. Retroperitoneum, sarcoma. And when you have a cyst, liver means it's very clear. Stomach, I said no cyst, but I have written here omental cyst because it is attached to the stomach. Pancreas is pseudocyst and cystadenoma. Retroperitoneum is retroperitoneal cyst. They are lymphatic cyst. Aortic aneurysm is not a cyst basically. It's a pulsatile swelling. Look at this one case of a retroperitoneal cyst, lymphatic cyst occupying almost all the quadrants. Whenever you have a large swellings, last time I told you, think of a retroperitoneal sarcoma, and if it is more of a cystic like feeling, think of a retroperitoneal cyst. 1 or 2 questions or any questions, I am free to answer, please. Any questions? You are tired? Yes, Deeparaj.
Sir, can I ask not about this, sir, some other swellings, sir, from center?
Please.
So midline neck swellings, I unfortunately lost the class, sir. Should we add thyroid swelling as midline neck swelling, sir?
Yeah, swelling arising from the isthmus.
Isthmus alone, sir. It's not other.
Other
Okay,
means other means what? Both right lobe and left lobe is they are not in the midline. If at all
Yes,
there
sir.
should be only a swelling should be in the midline from the thyroid. That is should be from the isthmus. You are talking about pyramidal lobe and all. They are very rare. Let us not
Okay,
confuse the matter.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Swelling
Thank you.
arising from isthmus is enough. Yes.
Okay, sir. Yes.
Any other questions?
Sir, regarding organs moving with respiration,
Yeah.
does kidneys come under it?
Last time we said kidney moves with the respiration because kidney is enclosed by fascia of Gerota, which blends above with the diaphragm. So when you take a deep inspiration, kidney moves with respiration.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
Sir, thank you so much for such a wonderful session, sir. I wish I was your student when
No.
I missed your tutorship. It's so wonderful, sir. Thank you so much again, and I'll.
Doctor, I acknowledge Dr. Srinivasan, sir.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
May I ask you one question?
Who is asking?
One question, sir. Me, sir, Dr. Srinivasan.
Sir, please ask. If I don't know, you have to answer. Yes, tell me, sir.
Sir, can we bring in any benign tumors of the stomach in the epigastric mass? Leiomyoma of the stomach.
What,
Because
sir?
one patient you said, no vomiting, benign tumor of the stomach as an epigastric mass. Can
Sir, I
we
have
bring in
told as the gist is one possibility, sir. Gastrointestinal stomal tumors. Their malignant
leiomyoma
potential depends upon the mitotic figure, etc. So we can consider, as I already explained about that, sir. Gist.